Hear Christafari's connection with Rich Mullins and how this ragamuffin helped propel them to move from music industry to music ministry. Join Rich's brother David as he highlights the struggles and trials of life and the power of God's deep love. Enjoy the stories of Rich's love for God, people, music, his commitment to simplicity and bucking the system, and more on this episode of the Word Sound and Power Hour.
Welcome to this edition of the Word Sound and Power Hour. And today I have the privilege of interviewing a speaker, a teacher, a writer, a musician, and a recent co-producer of, I believe, not just one movie, but perhaps a trilogy of movies. We're gonna find out more about that. His name is David Mullins. And David Mullins, I've never met you before, but I'm so excited to meet you because your brother has impacted my life in so many ways that I just can't wait to tell you all about it. Welcome, dude.
Thanks. It's great to be on with you.
So where are you at right now?
I am in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Kingsport, Tennessee. How far is that from Nashville?
It's about, I guess, 5 hours.
Okay.
Something like that. It's Upper East Tennessee, so we're about an hour and a half from Knoxville.
Is that Smoky Mountain territory you in?
Yeah, we're in the mountains. I'm about 10 miles from the Virginia line and about 50 miles from the North Carolina line, right up in the corner. So
nice. And are you a pastor right now?
I am, yeah. I'm the lead preaching minister at Colonial Heights Christian Church in Kingsport.
Awesome. And for those who hear his last name and think Mullins, that sounds really familiar. Give people a brief rundown of who your brother is.
Yeah, he was a Christian musician for a number of years. He's best known for his song "Awesome God," which a lot of churches have sung in the past. I think it's still sung in some places. But he put out, I think it's about 11 albums during his career, and he was killed in a car wreck
97, so it was...
so 24 years ago this fall, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
And you're one of the people who, well, obviously you were close to him. You're the youngest of the siblings?
Youngest. Yeah.
And you have a total of 4 siblings. I believe one of them passed away?
No, there were 6 of us.
6? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's 5 total and 1. Okay.
Yep. And now 3 have passed on. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the way life goes, isn't it?
Yeah. Life, yeah. So I watched the movie again last night. We're talking about the Ragamuffin movie. You were an executive producer in that movie, correct?
I was, yes.
What was it like being in charge of your brother's legacy in many ways?
It's got some really good pieces and some challenging things. So yeah, I think, one of the challenges is just, especially like with the movie and some different things, everything ties into everything else. So, the challenges of telling his story, like in the movie, and some of the relationship, like with my dad, was a challenge because it wasn't fair to my dad at all.
I was thinking that.
However, I think the impact of that relationship and what we told in the movie was true. So, but that doesn't mean that was necessarily my dad's intent. Or again, if it were a movie about my dad, it was horrible.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions I had for you was, what is it like? You're the youngest. You probably had a very different dad too.
Sure.
You probably had a different relationship with your dad than your brother did. I mean, was he the oldest or the oldest brother?
He was the oldest son.
Yeah. And so just like thinking of my wife, she has 24 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And her older ones have a very different view of their dad, almost negative because of, he was learning as a parent, and then the younger ones, he was like the best dad in the world. And somewhere in the middle is the truth, perhaps. What was it like for you?
I would say I'm sure that Dad for me was had grown a lot already by the time I went through like my teen years and those things. I think he was the same guy, but he had grown a lot. So the edge for sure was taken off. So
I have a unique relationship with my dad in that we're like best friends now. But when I was a teen, oh man, did we ever butt heads. And I think part of that for me was when he was growing up, his dad didn't say, "I love you, son, I'm proud of you," pat him on the back and give him a hug every day. His dad showed him he loved him through discipline. And I think that was something that after many different psychologists and AA meetings and all these different things, my dad learned, okay, you know what, maybe I need to show some more of this and show some more of that. Do you feel that there's any of that going on with your father and Rich?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, a number of people have watched the movie and go, man, your dad was just hard. And I'm like, I think he was like every dad of his generation.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, saying I love you. I don't know if any of my friends' dads ever said that. Especially the ones
true.
that had older parents like I had. But I think there was a lot of growth in the last couple of years of his life. He had a stroke 3 years before he died, and like in a very short period of time had 3 fairly near-death experiences, and I think those really impacted him, and I think coming out of those, especially with the 3 oldest of my siblings, Dad tried to reach back out and go, hey, wait, I don't know that I was who I would have liked to have been. I recognize that there was some things there, and made some amends. So I think, and I was 12 years younger than Rich. So I got to see him in my teenage years and during college. I got to see the impact of God's impact on him as he grew into the more mature version of my dad, and which was really good. So
12 years is a very big difference. I mean, your brother, when he left, you weren't even in puberty yet. So what kind of influence did he have on you in your younger adolescence?
Yeah, he left home, went to college when I was, I guess I would have been going into first grade when he left to go to college. So a lot of my early memories were him coming home from school and getting off the bus and, jumping on him and him beating us, he and my other brother up, and him getting ice cream for a snack for us and convincing us to have races to see who could eat it the fastest. And then he would is the quickest, and he'd go, hey, Lloyd, David's beating you. Why don't you let me help you? And then he'd help me. And then, hey, David, Lloyd's beating you. And he'd eat probably 2/3 of the ice cream, and Lloyd and I'd get 1/3. So, all kinds of things like that. Him chasing us with a pitchfork and threatening us, and those kind of things. So,
What scene or scenes do you wish made the movie that would have told a more fuller picture of him? And we're talking about the movie, the Ragamuffin is the name of the movie.
I wish we could have done more with his humor.
I was going to say that.
And just the love of life that he had. The challenge was that you only have a couple of hours. And already, one of the things in the movie, it shows him drinking and on a few occasions, drinking to excess. And, there's a lot of people go, oh man, he drank all the time. And like, no, that's not true. But I see in watching the movie, there's 4 things that you see him drinking. When my dad died, when another close person died at a breakup. I mean, significant moments. And I'm not saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter because it was in a tough moment. But no, there were significant periods of time that he didn't drink at all. So it's just hard to tell a 40-year long story in 2 hours and it not feel like, oh man, this guy was a complete, he was off his rocker. So
how old was he when you passed?
He would have been 42. The next month would have been his birthday. So
wow.
So I say he was 42, but
okay. So yeah. So you guys were raised in Indiana.
Yeah.
And then he starts or is a part of this band called Zion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm getting all my history from a movie right now, so bear with me. I know that a lot of times movies kind of do this to make things happen at certain times and in certain ways.
Right. Yeah.
And then eventually this hit single that he wrote was "Sing Your Praise to the Lord." Come on, everybody! That song was picked up by Amy Grant, correct?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Was that kind of his first hit of success?
It was, yeah. And actually, I think the movie showed this, but one of the other members of Zion, Beth Lutz, actually sent the song into the label, and Amy heard it, and they chose that they wanted to put it on, and he wasn't even sure he really wanted it. I mean, that was all in the movie, and really, I think, pretty accurately shown. So, but yeah, that's how it started, and he started just on a writing contract.
Okay, yeah, as a Nashville writer or a writer for Nashville. Now, one thing that I'm just dying to pick your brain on. Obviously, I saw this movie a few years ago, saw it again, and then again last night. It's one of my favorite Christian movies in that it's honest, it's raw, it asks some tough questions that a lot of Christian movies don't. You must have gotten a whole lot of flack for it with the fact that he's smoking, the fact that he's drinking, et cetera, et cetera.
I didn't get a whole lot, but probably Dave Schultz did. And yeah, I think it came out very many years earlier, it probably would have gotten more flack. But and I'm sure, some probably just dismiss it because it has that stuff and goes, well, that's what I figured about that guy anyway. And
oh gosh.
So it would be my guess. I don't know that, but
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's when we went into it, we wanted to tell when Dave Schultz brought the idea to us, his whole conversation with me as he pitched the idea was that Rich's life more than his music really had impacted Schultz's life, and it was the broken side and the hurts, and that Schultz said, basically he wasn't sure that he would still be alive had it not been for God's work through Rich's story and his life that Schultz had seen. So that's the story he wanted to tell, and that's really the only story that I think my siblings and I were terribly interested in, because a story that just made Rich look great, I think would be a failure.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think it would be true to what he would. It's not how he lived.
He didn't want things to be about himself, right?
Yeah, and he was pretty open about, I have my struggles, and I love God, and I want to grow, and I want him to complete the work that he's begun, but he hasn't yet, and it's a struggle. And one of my pet peeves with even reading the scriptures is when we take the people in the scriptures and make them great. I think what we do is we actually unintentionally diminish God. When Abraham was amazing in his faith.
Yeah.
And it's all about Abraham.
We venerate a man, and
well, where's God?
Yeah,
no, he didn't really, I'm like, well, I don't know that I could ever be Abraham at his best, but I also have never given my wife to somebody else. Hey, you take her as your wife and just leave my head on my shoulders. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't in the wrong situation. I don't know what I would do in some of the situations he found himself in, but yeah, so when it came to the story about Rich, we went, no, we want to tell a hard story that hopefully reveals the goodness of God.
Fascinating. Yeah, I that's one of the things that instantly struck me when I was watching the Ragamuffin movie is this is not most people would paint away all the bad stuff, and they would almost venerate the individual and make this protagonist it would be protagonist. And in this case, your protagonist, which is true to life, I believe, was really kind of troubled, was struggling internally, and didn't connect with the church, didn't connect with Nashville. Obviously, had some relational issue with this girl where the relationship didn't work out. There were definitely some issues.
And I hope that in the movie, that, like I said, it really was a movie about the love of the Father, which is why Dad was such the relationship with my dad was so key in it, was his search for the love of the Father. In many ways is kind of what the movie tried to focus in on. But I mean, and the girlfriend relationship actually probably represented 2 or 3 different relationships, but you can't. Again, in the course of 2 hours, you just have to. Some things you just go quick. These 3 become one character, and so his time with Nashville. I know some people in Nashville were really hurt by our depiction of how the record business is.
Oh no, it was very true. I used to live there.
And I went. It's probably not completely fair to Nashville, but when you heard him talk about Nashville, I think we were true to, and we were telling his story, not their story. And so, I'm sure there's probably some people in Nashville who don't really know me and don't really want to, because of the way things were depicted. But, okay. It wasn't about them either.
No, it wasn't. Now, this is something that I've just been curious about. How does it feel to have, I believe, loosely inspired? I believe your movie inspired them to do I Can Only Imagine. Did you saw it, right? You're like, oh my God, come on.
Yeah.
My wife has been seen it
about it because I was out of town and she watched it, and then she's like, you got to watch it. And
oh my God.
I don't know. I've heard enough about it that I don't know why I haven't watched it. I'm not like I won't watch that. But
no, there are so many parallels.
That's what I heard. Yeah. I mean, the Amy Grant connection at the begining, the exacting disciplinarian father. In this case, there's a change in that at the end. But yours is like the darker, grittier, or should I say Rich's, the version of Rich's life is darker and grittier. I do feel like when I watch interviews of him, when I hear him talking in between his songs, one of the things I really admire about any artist who isn't afraid to say what's on his what God is putting on his heart and his mind. I do feel like there's a lot of humor that he used that was not translated and probably would have been confusing to people in watching. Was there a joke or anything that sticks out to you that he used to say, or anything that would relay to people his humorous side? I don't know if there's anything in particular. One of the things that I loved when I would go to his concerts is, and I think humor was a big part of it, but he had a way at almost every concert I went to of finding a way to bash almost everybody's sacred cows. But by the end, to bring it back to, but here's what we all are here for, and it's God, and to reaffirm, and often it was done, with at least kind of tongue in cheek. I can remember him talking about being at a church and saying, "Now, y'all sing awful. You're just terrible. Like, you want to hear good singing, go to the Church of Christ, non-instrumental, because they sing a cappella." And he's like, "You go there, you're going to hear great singing. Now their doctrine is whacked out." But boy, their singing is,
That's funny.
Walk through a lot of things like that. But he had a lot of, and one of the challenges, and not to be mean in any way, but the guy who played Rich in the movie, humor was not a strength. And so there was some things that we had in there going, like, especially when he was talking and doing some of those things of going, hey, dude. And it just, that was the piece that I think he was the weakest in being able to pull off playing Rich. So.
Okay. Give me some adjectives that you would use to describe Rich.
Well, I think generally honest and transparent, although he would say, people think I say whatever, but I am very careful about what I reveal. He was, I think a lover of God and loved by God.
Amen.
I think he really did love people. He loved community. Everywhere he went, I saw him build community, and then usually avoid it at some level or another, which most of us do, I think. So I would say genuine, kind of. I can say I don't feel like I saw a whole lot of difference between him on stage and him sitting at our dining room table playing Up and Down the River, which is a card game. So our family card game that he taught us pretty much. So
really, okay,
yeah,
that's nice. In the movie, there's a quote where it says music was the only thing that made sense to him. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He, which I think is part of the issues with my dad, because while my dad had some appreciation for music, he was a farmer, he was a tool and die maker, he was very mechanical. And really, I mean, in the movie we talk about, he dropped all 4 tires of a tractor in a hole at the same time, and you know, it's not even really possible. He really did those things. He was driving a tractor one day and a wheel fell off. It's just like, what in the world? I mean, not just as a little kid, like as an adult, it just, mechanic things, anything like that just would not work. Sports, he did not. As he got older, he learned to enjoy sports, even though he wasn't particularly athletic. But music was his thing. So, and I think, in the movie we show him when he first started playing piano, and that was a true story, really. My sister was taking piano lessons and was trying to play a hymn, and my mom was doing stuff, and she was practicing and couldn't get it. And my mom was not where she could see, and my sister got up and snuck out, and Rich came in and sat down and by ear played the hymn correctly.
Wow.
And so they went, maybe we're giving piano lessons to the wrong person. So and that was, I think he was about 4 actually when he did.
What?
So,
wow.
So music, just, he could hear it, and and then I mean, he put a lot of effort into learning the theory of music and all of that. So so music was his thing for sure.
Definitely. And it seems like he was very introspective, at times isolated, somewhat a deep thinker, which made him for a powerful lyricist. Are there any what are some of your favorite quotes of his, or lyrics of his?
I guess one of my favorite quotes is, and I'm terrible at quoting people, so
No worries.
but he talked about it in it's recorded in a Lufkin live concert that there's videos out YouTube. I think you can get the whole thing on YouTube, but there's a section in there that he's talking about just life, and he says, you know what, go out and love really good. And if you do, I'll guarantee you're going to get beat up really bad.
Yeah.
But after you're dead, it won't matter if you had a few scars. It will matter if you didn't live. So go out and love real good. So, yeah, I love that. I love the color green. Just a lot of his songs that really bring out the imagery of creation in worship. And I love it. Those are some of my favorite probably lyrics. Hold Me Jesus is just that cry. There's a lot of his songs that I've heard other people say it too, but I feel the same way. There's a lot of his songs that I'm like, oh, if I could write, I would want to have written that one. Somehow you put words to what my soul feels that I can't in a lot of those kind of songs.
He seemed like a psalmist in many ways. You go through some of the Psalms, and there are some darker Psalms, but God is always the light and the hope, and the light does shine through. And then there's there are two like touchstone moments in his life. I think one of them was Brennan Manning. What do you think it is about Brennan that connected so much with Rich?
I think it's just the message of grace, and the overwhelming nature of God's grace. And I think somehow in the way that Brennan lays that out, I think that just connected really deeply. Probably at the I think God works in the exact right moment. The exact right word comes, and I think Brennan was the vehicle through which those things took place. And then I think Brennan having he had a pretty broken story as well, and yet God used him to impact so many lives. So I think there's a kindred spirit there in some ways. So that would be my guess.
It takes one to win one.
Yeah.
Now there's the Brennan movie. Were you a part of that one?
Just periphery. So
did I see you in it? Was that your face in it for a moment?
Most of the scenes that I was in got cut. Just as things happen, but I do think I was in it. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I'm pretty sure a couple of scenes made it. So
I know you made the trailer. I haven't seen the movie yet, but that's the next one that I'm going to watch. I honestly, forgive me, but I didn't realize that the other two parts of the trilogy are out now. The Brennan one, and then the next one is on Saint Francis of Assisi.
Yeah.
And what's the name of that movie?
Oh boy, Schultz is going to kill me. I can't remember.
God's Fool.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and tell us about, to the best of your knowledge, about your brother's connection with Saint Francis and why.
Yeah, I think one thing, the movie Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, when he was in college, he saw it, and he made everybody watch it. Everybody he saw, have you seen this? And most people were like, oh, this is a terrible movie. But I think St. Francis' approach to life, to simplicity, just really connected with him. And so over the years, I think it played out just in one. I think it really helped lay some railroad tracks for Rich's faith to kind of run down a similar line. And then the last few years of his life, he and his good friend Beaker started the Kid Brothers of St. Frank, which was intended to be a way for them to disciple young men. And just, they did it through music. They bring them on the road with them. But then there was an intentional, we're going to do Bible studies. We're going to do these things. They each worked on writing their own vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and what that meant for them and how they were going to walk those things out. And so I think those things, I don't know exactly why or how they connected, but they sure did deep. So.
Powerful. So now for a little bit of the connection between me and Rich. And I guess the first one was about a year before I came to Christ. Of course, his Awesome God song came out, and you couldn't go to youth camp without singing it 100 times. You know what I mean? Here I am, 16, 17, almost 17, and it's everything is he ain't putting on the Ritz. Our God is an awesome God. All this stuff, and it was the anthem. You couldn't be in youth group without singing it. And to be frank, play on words there. To be frank, I didn't like Christian music.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I was a pot smoking runaway kid. I was a rebel. I did not connect with Christian music. So my first connection with Rich wasn't a connection. It was watching all these kids sing something, and to me they were fake. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize at the time that they had a joy that I didn't have. One of those moments, I think I was maybe 16. I wanted to go to Palm Springs to party in the summer. No, this was spring break. I was going to go and party like it was 1999, long before it was 1999. And my parents found out, and instead they sent me on a missions trip. And they sent me on a missions trip to Window Rock. And now I'm staying on a Navajo reservation, ministering with all these, I didn't like, fake Christians. And I'm just, a non-voluntary missions trip is not a good idea.
Yeah.
But something started there. Something clicked there. So fast forward quite a few years. I give my life to Christ. All of a sudden now I'm singing Awesome God next to these people that I thought were fake. And now I'm realizing that they weren't fake. They just had the joy of the Lord. I started a band 2 weeks after giving my life to Christ at that one of those same camps where everybody was singing Awesome God. It's 1989. Rich Mullins has never been more famous. And I eventually get a record deal. We moved to Nashville. Rich Mullins is really famous in Nashville. I did about 6 years in Nashville. And I find myself in 1997. Of course, we played a few shows with him here and there, and he was on the lineup, but I didn't really think about it. We find ourselves filming a music video for Valley of Decision, Christafari's probably second, third music video, and we're filming it in Window Rock, Arizona. And as we pull up, I'm like, what? This is the same exact place that I went on that non-voluntary fourth mission trip when I was a drug-addicted teen. And now it's like, this is awesome. I'm here for Jesus, and we're filming a music video on a Navajo reservation. And then they're like, oh, that's Rich. I'm like, what? That's Rich? What is he doing here? He's like, he lives here. I'm like, what the heck? What Christian artist would live here? And so sure enough, sorry, I'm going long. This isn't a question. This is more of a me.
Absolutely, I love it.
This is me telling you why the heck you're being interviewed and connecting the dots now. So I am at this missions compound in Arizona. I believe it was Arizona. It was right on the border of Arizona, New Mexico, and I see Rich Mullins, and for me, it's like my eyes are like laser-sighted target. I got to connect with this guy. I got to know this guy. Because everybody thinks, it isn't the case, but if you know this person, they're your big break. Mm-hmm. And so sure enough, he's isolated as usual, eating an Indian taco by himself. I go and sit right across from him. As I'm picking apart this Navajo taco, and trying to get the beans to not fall off and stuff, and trying not to get stuff on my beard, I'm asking him essentially this question: how do I make it in Nashville?
Did he ask you why?
Is that the fun? Now, what do you think he would say? If I were to say, how do I make it in Nashville? How do we get more traction for our music? How do we get success? What do you think he would say?
Well, I know I heard him say on a number of occasions to people who were asking those kind of questions and I heard him say it in a concert that, I don't really know, but if God wants you to be there and to have it, he'll give you 12 brothers who'll sell you into slavery. So.
I like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but if I were to reenact it in a movie or in a music video, I would have him say, "Now, why would you want to do that?"
Yeah.
I would have him say, I left Nashville. I got out of Babylon, and this is where God is moving.
Yeah.
Not in the Bible Belt. And I don't know exactly what he said. I don't remember. It's been, it was 97. I've been to 85 countries since then,
sure,
and
yeah.
46 states. But what he said, that little conversation that we had, I'm going to bring it back even further. When I was even younger, I met Danny Elfman. I got a chance to go backstage, Oingo Boingo, lead singer, go backstage and interview him with my friend. His brother worked for Kiss FM. Later on, after a show, Danny signed something for me. I know that was a hallmark moment for me. That was a touchstone moment where, because of that, I'm now the lead singer of a band. Fast forward now to having a Navajo taco, that 15-minute conversation with Rich. I believe that was the impetus for why I'm a missionary.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
That's why. So I'm going to blame it on him. I'm going to blame it on your brother.
Yeah.
He'll blame it on St. Frank. But I think that there was a quote in the movie. I don't know if it's okay. He didn't become a Christian because people were telling him about the nuts and bolts of Christianity. He became a Christian because people were willing to be the nuts and bolts of Christianity. I think, and I could be misquoting it, but I think that in many ways in my life, Rich was one of those nuts and bolts. He was a nut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another one of them is somebody that I never got a chance to meet. That was Keith Green.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Green was another guy, and it's the funny thing is the guys who I really connect with, Rich and Keith. I'm not a massive fan of their music, but their mindset on the industry, their mindset on ministry, their mindset on all the things that matter, what really does matter.
Yeah.
And that stuck out to me. And then I remember going outside of the next day and him showing me his house. It was a hogan. Could you describe to everybody what a hogan is?
Yeah, hogan is a traditional Navajo dwelling, and it's basically an octagon, 8-sided, one room, dirt floor. That when he moved out there, he went, you know what? I'm gonna live on the Navajo res. I'm gonna build. I want to live in a hogan. I want to do this way. And yeah, his was terribly built, but
I saw it.
Yeah.
He wanted to contextualize. He wanted to have what's the word? Incarnational Christianity would be the best description. So incarnational that he was probably one of the few Navajos that was actually living in a hogan at this point, because that was more of an old school thing. But he was taking it back to old school, barefoot, living in a one room. What was it, like 20 foot by 20? Is about that big, something like that.
I don't know if it was that big. It might have been that big. Yeah.
It was not that big. It was pretty darn small. Now, this is a guy who got a house from royalties from the get and could have been living large. He kind of threw all that to the side and took what you were talking about, a vow of poverty. Tell us about that and what inspired that.
Yeah, I think, I think he would say his vow of poverty was more a vow of simplicity.
Yeah,
learning to live simply. And so And I think one of the things for him, and this is my opinion, but I've had other people say that they think it's pretty well right on, was not so much I'm above money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so holy that it has no pull, but a recognition that it does.
Oh,
So it was a fleeing temptation, and finding freedom from the temptation of being driven by money and possessions. Because he would go out and buy a really expensive sweater if he saw it. It wasn't like, oh, I can't ever spend money and I got to live in poverty. It was, no, I'm going to live simply, and I'm going to live holding things with an open hand. And so he might go spend, a couple $100 on a sweater or something, and then turn around and give it away to somebody who needed it. On the other hand, he could, there's a guy in Ireland that had a band that he went over and was spending some time with, and he tells the story that Rich had just some really terrible tennis shoes on, and over there it's raining and it was just gross, and he's like, you need some boots, and he had just gotten a new pair of boots that this guy did, and Rich said, yeah, I could use a pair, and he had left them and went into the other room to get a pair of boots. When he came back, Rich was wearing his new boots and went, these will do. He's like, Rich Mullins just put my boots on, said they'll do. What am I going to do? Take it away from him? So he said, Rich took his boots, and that guy was over here at some point and was like, hey, Rich, whatever happened to those boots? And I said, oh, I don't know. I think I gave them to some kid on the res. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah.
That's awesome.
So, but I think in a lot of ways that idea of flea temptation is one of the things that drove him in the area of simplicity. Just going.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one reason why he wanted out of Nashville. I don't. Yeah. I think he recognized I don't like what business does to people, and I don't want in my life, and so I want to get out of here, not because I'm so much better than that, but because I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Because I'm not. I remember in Nashville, for years we would do GMA, and it was which is Gospel Music Week, Gospel Music Association. It was a really, really corrupt time, and it wasn't that the association was corrupt. It was that everybody was coming to get something, to give something. It was like it wasn't about Jesus. It was about fame. It was about money. It was about sales. It was about all the things that were not about Jesus, and that culminated by an award show. And I remember years ago, there was this pamphlet going around the GMA week called Snakes in the Lobby. And it was about like a spiritual, take the blinders off and see what this is really like. And I felt like your brother, I don't know if he ever read it, but I do know that he really bucked this system. This one year when the Dove Awards had gotten to the highest, one year Rich was getting an award, and I believe it was his last award that he ever received. And he had to come off of the reservation in order to receive it. And I'm pretty sure he was barefoot on stage. Who knows? But I, at least in my book, I've tried to find this online, and I haven't been able to find it. Maybe you can help me in your archives. But I'll never forget. Everybody was standing ovation. Everybody, yeah, Rich won. He comes up and he grabs the mic and he gives the most anticlimactic, probably negative, but correctly pointed reception speech I've ever heard. Do you remember that? Were you there? Did you hear anything about that?
I was not. I don't think I do know about that one. So
essentially what he said was, I'm probably misquoting, but Jesus wouldn't care about this. This kind of stuff makes God mourn. It's not about awards. It's not about money. It's about ministry. It's about serving God. He didn't say shame on you, but he might as well have.
Yeah.
Just say they're like, after that happened, I'm sure GMAs are like, okay, this guy's never going to be nominated again. he's going to be blackballed because he put it in an eternal perspective. I'll never think of an award show again the same. We think about the wreath or the crowns that we get in heaven. We think about the things that you can't bring with you to heaven. And he basically just told everybody that that's what matters and not this. Yeah. He reminded everybody that this was temporal and what is eternal. And that was probably his last official Nashville speech. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right for him. So, I know,
bucking the system.
Yeah. He always did. So probably part of that and the frustration was it could mean something to him too, and he didn't want it to.
I like that. Yeah. Interesting.
Because I think a lot of times it's so easy for it to come across as shame on you all.
Yeah.
But he was a part of that system.
Oh yeah.
As well, and so I think probably my experience with him is probably he was about as frustrated that it could have an impact on that it could grab him too.
Yeah. And you talked earlier about what some would consider a vow of poverty. I think one thing that is noteworthy, and it's mentioned in the movie. I would encourage you guys once again to see the Ragamuffin movie. You can watch it on Prime with commercials. You can watch it on a bunch of different places, and pretty much any platform. But was that he essentially was making all this money, but he told his accountant. You can tell us what he told his accountant about the average salary.
Yeah, he was at a place that probably after Awesome God was out and money was a little easier to come by.
Yeah.
And he was talking to his accountant and just said, you know what, I want you to figure out what the average income of a person in America is, and that's what I want to get paid. And just put the rest, I don't even want to know about it really. I want to live on what does an average person in America live on. That was again part of that choice of simplicity and going, wait, no, this is good for my faith. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And in doing that, the rest of the money went towards charity, went towards the church, from what I understand.
A lot of it did, but a lot was, it was just there.
Yeah.
He didn't know what he had. So, yeah.
Interesting. He didn't want his possessions to possess him. Yeah,
absolutely. But I know, he would call his accountant and go, "Hey, Jim, do we have any money?" And
do we?
Yeah. And so Jim would respond, "Yeah, we've got some money. What are you thinking?" "Well, I was thinking I need to get this." "Why do you need that?" What? We laughed. I just said, I'm terrible with technology, and he was even worse. But one of those calls was, "Hey, do we have any money?" And Jim said, "Yeah, we've got some money. What do you?" And this was shortly before the accident, I think. And he said, "Well, I'm thinking about getting a computer. Is Windows 98 a good computer?"
Windows 98.
And Jim said, What are you trying to figure out?" He's like, "Well, I just write on notepads and then I lose them. And maybe if I had a computer and I just used it." And Jim was like, "Don't buy anything. I've got a laptop here at the office. We'll set you up with that and see if you like it or not." So, and then by the time he got back to Wichita, he never asked about it again. So, but yeah, that was kind of how he did things.
Fascinating. So in September of 1997, I slept in as a normal musician, and I woke up and I've never had so many voicemails in my phone in my life. Everybody thought that I had passed away. And in a Jeep crash with Rich Mullins. I don't know how that got mixed up. There was some weird messages or maybe one news feed or whatever, but I think because the other guy that was in the vehicle, his name had an M and an M in it, and mine is an M and M. I don't know, Mark Moore, Mitch,
Yeah.
I don't know. But even people that in Nashville that didn't like me, that hadn't talked to me for 6 months because of a band split and all this crud, all of a sudden I was like their best friend and they were so concerned. And so when it hit me, the news hit me, it was like, no, I don't think I am. I'm here. But what happened? And then when I found out it was Rich, it just hit me. It was a guttural punch. And I think in many ways, it was another wake-up call. What really matters? Why are you doing this? What is your legacy going to be?
Yeah.
How did it hit you? It must have hit you hard.
Yeah, I actually, by the time the word got to our family, I was a youth minister. I was a preacher at the time.
Really?
And a lot of the kids in our youth group were in a thing called Bible Bowl, where it was a Bible quiz kind of competition thing, and we were at a competition about an hour and a half away from our house, and that was really before cell phones, and so I got home from that competition to Robin having to share. I really feel bad for her. She had to tell me that my dad died and had to tell me about Rich. So, it was probably one of the, if not the most painful right there, weeks, months of my life. Because just the way he lived and, him being my older brother and growing up, going into ministry, I was influenced by him in just a ton of different ways. That was awful, but it was a life-changing. Within a year, we had moved to Wichita and had started an organization to do some of the work on the reservations that he wanted to do. After I had said, no, I don't want to really be any part of that. But it was, and I really don't remember a ton about, there's probably at least a month there that Robin today will say, oh, do you remember this? And I'm like, nope. No. I remember I wanted his hammer dulcimer. Where is the dulcimer? Is it safe? That was.
Did you get it?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. We got one, and it was actually Michael Ockefer's who traveled with him.
Okay.
And we thought I thought it was Rich's, and so I was like, no, nobody's getting their hands on this. And then when they got Rich's, Michael was like, I feel really bad, but that one's mine. Can I get it back and give you Rich's? So,
wow.
But it was. And then there was kind of a memorial tour. There were memorials in several places around the country, and different parts of our family were able to go to different ones. And it was crazy.
I hear you. When I reached out to you guys about, 15 years ago or so, I think I spoke perhaps with your sister, but we were trying to do some ministry with the Havasupai tribe in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And so I reached out to every single Christian ministry that did anything with any Indian, indigenous peoples in America. And of course, when I heard, oh, wow, this one's connected with Rich and its music. Tell us about that nonprofit and what the heart of it was.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, what Rich during his time on the res, I think, was developing an idea for ministry that he wanted to do and to see come to reality. And oddly, I think within the last month or two of his life, he was talking to one of the guys that toured with him and said, I'm not going to get to do this. I don't know. I don't know, but I know I'm not going to be the one. And he really wanted this guy to kind of do it. But when he was killed, Elisa Lakota, who had worked with Compassion International, that Rich was very engaged with in their American stuff, she left Compassion and came to work with this group that was formed. And I ended up moving, Robin and I moved from West Virginia to Kansas to be a part of it. And the whole idea of it really was to live out the love of Christ through art and music. And so we tried to partner with local ministries on different reservations around the country, and be able to go in and work alongside them and teach art and music. Because in many of the poverty on the reservations is just it's an unbelievable thing. If you've never been to a res, you go on and it's like, no, this is third world.
Third world.
And so their education systems barely get to do what's considered essential. And so arts and musics and all of those things just don't really have a place. So Rich wanted to use art and music as a way to just begin to live out the love of Christ and to give a free gift and to go, hey, somebody does care about you. Let me tell you about him. And so that's really what we were trying to do. And I worked with that for, I think it was about 3 years. And then we kind of set it off on its own, and I went a different direction. But some of the people that worked with us were doing a traveling music school for, I'd say probably another maybe 15 years. It's not very long ago that they wrapped up their time on the res and just went, and I'm not sure, but they were trying to hand that off to somebody else. Yeah, but that's really what it was. Yeah.
So just 2.5 weeks ago, we're in Arizona. A few weeks earlier, we administered an Apache reservation for a few days, and then we went to a Navajo reservation, a place called Sweetwater. And I had a chance to share from stage. I'll use the word stage loosely because it was an outdoor, kind of a parking lot, drive-in concert. And I shared Rich Mullins' story. And I shared the impact that he had on me when I visited that res the very first time as a involuntary missionary, and the second time voluntary, that kind of set us on a missionary trajectory. I told people about how one conversation over a Navajo taco changed the trajectory of my life in so many ways. It was a watershed moment, a touchstone moment. And now fast forward almost 30 years, we've been to 85 nations, and we have a huge heart for the tribes. So I'm going back to this Navajo tribe for the first time again. Since the last time I was there, I was with Rich, and I'm telling Rich's story. And I'll never forget this. You have to hear this. It's at a Navajo school that we're ministering at. And afterwards, we're sharing, once again, Navajo tacos with people. I'm not sitting across from Rich this time, but I'm sitting across from a headmaster or somebody like that. And they said, when you mentioned Rich, I got Jesus bumps just thinking about it, because he came here. He taught on this res, and his impact, his legacy is still being felt. And so it was so cool to be again in his footsteps many years later.
Yeah.
What do you feel like, what do you hope that Rich's legacy will mean to others? And what do you think he would want it to be?
Yeah. Well, I know there's a quote that he was asked about his legacy, and he talked about that he hoped that he would leave a legacy of true compassion. And so, I don't know that I could do anything other than hope that that's what it is. So, one of the things that I just love about how God works in and through his people and the saints through history is, St. Francis had an amazing impact on somebody that lived how many hundred years later in Rich's life. Different ones from the scriptures, people today will find it and have some connection to them and will be inspired by them to live out their faith in a extravagant way in one way or another. My hope for Rich's story, as well as mine and anybody else's, is that somehow God takes these lives that are lived in a moment, trying to be faithful in a moment, but uses it to have an impact that is so much longer lasting. I mean, my family's amazed, that, it's been 20 plus years. There's a lot of people, that I talk to now that weren't born until after he was dead and have no idea. Yeah. And yet the impact that he had on other musicians that came along after him, there's that rolling effect of life. And so I hope that it keeps rolling. But I hope more than anything that what really moves forward from it is the movement of God in his life. Because I think while going to the res and working is a great thing, if it's in following what Rich did, it's probably not going to make that much difference.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's in a pursuit of God and in a yielding to what God has called a person to, then I think that there's real power there. So
yeah.
Sorry to ramble and preach.
No worries. It's about following Jesus, not Rich.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And man, it's so easy to get that just twisted just a touch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in many ways, Rich was the nut and bolt of Christianity. In what ways are you being in nuts and bolts of Christianity for others? Tell us about yourself, about what God has you doing.
Yeah, well, I'm preaching here in Kingsport, Tennessee. I've been here for just a little over 3 years, and I love the church. We've survived COVID, it seems, and and kind of thrived during COVID.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other things that I've been able to be a part of that I really love is a ministry called Walking Stick Retreats.
Yeah.
Actually, Sam, Beth, and Sprinkle are in that with me from the movie, which has been really fun to be able to connect with people that I watched when I was growing up and to be able to engage in ministry with them. But we do just spiritual growth retreats a couple times a year in different parts of the country. And it's just an open retreat. Anybody can come to them. And a lot of it launched out of the movie Ragamuffin. So we've been doing it for a few years now. But some of the impact in people's lives through the course of a retreat, or a lot of people who come to one end up coming to almost all of them that we do. But yeah, I love that. Just being able to walk with people for a weekend and hear what God's doing in their life and try to encourage that and spur that is a real, really fulfilling thing for me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you, and I have to say one thing. Every time I look at you, I see your brother.
Yeah.
Do people say that a lot?
Most people. Some people go, "Oh, I don't think you look anything like him."
A lot
of people see
he had more of a leathered texture. I think it was
he had been rode hard and put up wet a lot more than me. So.
The top off of the Jeep for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's been such a pleasure as I like I say, I see that resemblance. You are truly his brother, but not just in the way you look, in your heart, and your love for the Lord. And I champion your legacy as well. And thank you so much for helping us unpack his legacy, and hopefully for another generation of people to learn about him and to ask some tough questions, to not just accept what the system hands you, but to buck it and stick with the scriptures. Yeah. And thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh man, I appreciate you inviting me on. I've enjoyed it. I love getting to reminisce and talk about some of those things. So
this is awesome. And for those of you who are watching or listening, the most important thing in Rich's life was Jesus Christ. And he wrestled with his flesh. He wrestled with a lot of thoughts, a lot of challenging things. And maybe you're wrestling with that. Maybe you're wrestling with doubts. Maybe you're wrestling with, who is God? Who are you? Why were you created? God made you with love and with intentionality. And I think that the main focal point of that movie is that you're loved. The main focal point of the scriptures that you're loved, and that God is a God of grace, and he wants to give that grace to you, a grace you don't deserve. You were born into sin. This sin separates you from God, but nothing can separate you from God's love. And he's reaching out in grace, wanting to invite you to heaven, to spend eternity with him. And you can't work your way, you can't earn your way, as it says in the movie and in the scriptures. You have to receive this free gift. And if you want to go to heaven, you want to know for sure when you die that you will be in heaven, possibly playing a dulcimer with Rich. Just pray this prayer. Say, Lord Jesus, thank you so very much for dying for me. Thank you for raising from the dead. Be my Lord. Save me. Cleanse me of my sins. I turn away from my sin. I repent. I turn to you. Give me heaven. I'm forgiven. And for you, I will be living. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just prayed that prayer, please do me a favor. Email us. Just go to Christafari.com and click on contact. Thank you so very, very much, Pastor David Mullins, for joining us and for telling us everything you can in just 1 hour about your brother Rich Mullins and the Ragamuffin Gospel.
Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for having me.
We hope you have been encouraged by the display of Rich and David Mullins' lives and will live in such a way to not talk about the nuts and bolts of faith, but to be the nuts and bolts to see other people set free. To help us continue to live boldly through music and faith, please go to Christafari.com/donate today. May you live with truth and passion in all that you do.